Sorry, I meant... Hey, you. Yeah, you. Are you interested in becoming the coolest new shop in town? Well, what about becoming the richest one out of all your friends? Well, today is your lucky break, because for a small fee of 99 diamond blocks, you will receive a copy of Trilocks' ultimate course of shop maintenance. Well, I don't want to brag, but the reviews basically write themselves. Are you perhaps unsure? Well, these are the qualified words from our course graduates.
I started this course for my maple syrup business, and it's never been
Better.
I mean, seriously? My business is absolutely
Booming.
I've never taken anything.
Better.
I don't know what to say.
Well, my shop never had a lot of customers, really, but after taking this course, I can say it's not looking that
Bad.
This is an absolutely
Amazing.
course. I paid money for this, and it completely
Improved.
everything.
I took his course. I have a business that sells rotten flesh. And ever since I took the courses, I just
Gained.
everything. I
Gained.
loved everything. My life has gone.
Amazingly. Yallo, Trilocks here, and before the video actually starts, I would like to tell you that it will be divided into 10 smaller sections. I will leave the timestamps down below if you want to watch a specific section, but I do recommend you watch them in order as it makes the most sense and I kind of guide you through the whole process of making Minecraft shop. Now for this first section, I will divide it into 2 smaller parts, supply and demand. With supply being quite obvious, you have to have stuff to sell so you can sell stuff. What I mean by this is you should prioritize things that you have in abundance or that you can farm easily to sell to people. Because you're not gonna go out of your way to get something that is really specific to get just to sell, or that you can't even farm and it doesn't even get any sales, right? You're gonna try and get things that you can get in mass if you do a farm, so that people, instead of having to build their own farms, look for you to give that specific thing. Demand is also quite simple. You just need to analyze your surroundings. You need to have things that people will actually want to buy. So for example, if there's a public iron farm in the server, you're not gonna sell iron because people aren't going to buy. If you're in a post-apocalyptic server, you're not gonna sell prismarine or coral blocks because that's not usually in the color palette they use. It's all about analyzing your surroundings. You're not gonna go into Psycraft, sell 2x2 flush piston door device because nobody is actually going to buy it, and you won't be able to make a profit. But this part should be the shortest because it's also the simplest. To exemplify, I will take the mock that I used in the beginning of the video and go inside. Here, first, I laid out all the things we're going to sell in a dye store. All of the different dye. And you look over here. Honey bottles, bone meal, those aren't dyes. Like, I can't believe I have to say this. Stores have a focus and the customer is heading to them because they have a specific issue in mind they need fixed. So if you want to sell bone meal, you make a bone store. If you want to sell honey bottles, you make a honey store. You don't want to clutter your catalog so that people don't have a specific focus to shop there. So they're just going to spend all the time looking for their stuff, and it's just going to be an all-around unpleasant experience, making them not want to return. So this part to me is probably the most important part in the whole video, because to have an attractive shop that compels people into going inside of it, you need a good design, you need a compelling design, But what is a fitting design? So to exemplify what a fitting design is, I want to play a little game with you guys. I'm going to put an image up of the mock build for the die store that I put in the intro of the video. Now, we remove its color. Then, we obstruct the letters. And if you asked me personally what I thought the store was, I would have said, oh, it's a wood store. Because it has, wood in the walls, wood in the decor, lots of barrels. That's what a wood store has. But no, it's a die store. Now, if we analyze the flower store that I showed in the beginning of the chapter, after removing the colors, it's still very obvious that it is a flower store because the design itself is a pot with a flower on top of it. It doesn't need to be as obvious as this, but having little hints in the structure and the architecture, or even with the actual items in display, helps a ton to know what type of store it actually is. So while I'm not saying you should go right and sticking whatever item you're selling on top of your stores, you could do what I did with the redesign of the die store. Right here, I took the design of having colors on top and I made it into more of a color wheel type thing. I made it white because of the refraction of light into different types of colors, and I add a lot of glass to add that prism effect. Over here, I also added kind of a mural showing the change of colors. It's way more color oriented than that old little wood shack. To me, this acts more like a continuation of chapter 2. A storage system for a shop should not look like this, and more like this. And it's not just about reducing visual clutter so that you have more space for other things, it's also because it declutters the mind of the person actually buying the things, making it more intuitive to buy things, make people want to buy more. Because they know where things are specifically, so they don't have to spend 10 minutes scavenging around your shop to buy cyan terracotta. Using the division I did in the store, for example, I divided each color into 3 chests. The bottom one being called the name of the color and dye, containing the dyes and the wool. The middle one being called name of color and concrete, containing concrete and concrete powder. And the top one being called name of color and terracotta, including the regular terracotta and glazed terracotta for each color. This just makes the consuming experience more convenient and makes people want to return to your shops after having bought for the first time. This is the part of the video where you take the leading role, because it depends a lot more on the financial situation of the server you're playing in and how you want to be rewarded, because the one working here is you. So you should define how much you should be paid, but you also need to make the number low enough so that people actually have the money to buy your things. It needs to be a fair exchange between effort and pay. So you take a look at what you're selling, how hard it is to get, and define the pay yourself, and well, trial and error is the key to success. Now this is one of my favorite parts of the whole design process, because it's just not as simple as going to someone else's base and saying, here, buy for my stuff. For example, for one of my older shops, I used to go into people's bases and change out room layouts based on what block I was selling. Of course, I'm not telling you to go around breaking people's walls and changing them for whatever material you are selling, but just try and be creative about how you approach your customers so that they actually know you exist. An amazing example of creative advertising is Zumavoid's Hermitcraft Season 6 Totem of Undying store, where he falls out of the sky near fellow hermits, explodes the Totem of Undying on impact, and surprises them by linking his store. And remember, the more creative and attention-seeking the advertisement is, the more people will remember it. Now you would think that adding more stuff to an already simple store would just be unnecessary and go against chapters 2 and 4. Well, it depends on how you implement it. So for example, this big open area right here could be a water fountain, a red dragon mahjong tile, 25 cubic meters of cyan wool, or a bargain pile. Also, if you're given all of these options, always pick the bargain pile. And speaking of bargain piles, let's move on to our next section, which is about... Okay, I think I can knock this one out in less than 50 words. So let's start now. If you have excess stock, you should sell excess stock for less than normal stock in bargain bin so that customers are incentivized to buy excess stock so that you sell all stock. By the way, that took me like 30 tries just to not get stuck in excess stock. If you want an extra challenge, count how many words I actually said in that segment and comment it down below. Honestly, this is one of the least you must follow of the sections because it really depends on how saturated the commerce in your server is, especially because of how vague it actually is. Because depending on what you've done in the previous steps, you could already be unique without having to appeal to a gimmick. So for example, if you're more organized, if you have better stock, if your prices are better, you're already unique compared to the competition. But if you really can't change anything, if you've gone the farthest you can through price and bargain and improvement, you can always add a new gimmick. So let's say, for example, you have a rocket shop, but next to yours, there's a cooler and better rocket shop. Instead of reducing your prices or increasing your stock, you could add a gimmick. So for example, instead of just paying for the rockets, you could make a little ring mini game so that they have to pass through the rings to get new rockets. You could do that with any type of material, mini games, raffles, or any type of unique gimmicks that add a spin to your builds. An amazing example of this would be Grian's Hermitcraft Season 6 Elytra course, where you had to compete glowing through rings all around the map to gain rockets at the end. And while normally you don't have to be as creative as that, if that's really what you want to do, it can be an amazing last resort that can change the tides of commerce. Be warned, this is the final section. Like, keep your stuff stocked? Lol. You have now completed the 10th section of Trilocks' ultimate course of shop maintenance. You can now go from a lowly bum into the biggest entrepreneur the Minecraft world knows. You must sign the contract that came with the book and mail it to Trilocks Corporation. The Trilocks' ultimate course of shop maintenance team would like to thank the lovely voices of Snowman64, Tess, and Nedum for appearing in the intro. And remember, the secret to infinite money is... subscribe to know the rest.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.